Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favourite witches. Hello, gorgeous. Thank you for joining me today. We have an absolute hoot of an episode. I'm chatting with a psychic comedian, Karen Rontowski, who uses tarot on stage, like sits down on a table with her tarot cards and reads tarot, but in a way that is so hilarious. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about before we jump into the interview, I'm going to play one of the video clips straight from their TikTok. You can go and watch this there, but you'll hear the audio. If you listen to audio, you'll see it if you're watching on YouTube. And that'll give you a little bit of a vibe. And then I'm going to play a longer one at the end of the episode as well. So both were so funny I couldn't choose. So I've putting one now and one at the end. So stay tuned to listen to that and enjoy this episode. Remember, we have uncut episodes available way before the public gets them, only for society members. And I did have to cut a couple of bits out of this one that I was like, oh, I don't think I can air that. But if you're curious what they were, jump on over to the Suburban Witches Society and check it out now.
How is the business going to be this year?
What is the business?
Farming, and I blend my own teas.
Farming and teas?
The crop's going to be.
I've never been asked about crops. That's fantastic. They're going to be very good, but here's the thing. It's going to be a weird season. Like when you're like, why isn't anything growing? And then everything's going to grow. Like, have you ever taken mushrooms and you're like, nothing is happening? And then you're like, I have to go to the emergency room. It's going to be like that.
In this episode, I am chatting with Karen Rontowski, who is the original psychic comedian. Karen combines her 35 years as a stand-up comedian with 25 years as a tarot reader. Yes, this episode is going to be as fun as it sounds. Karen has appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman, Comedy Central, and Mysteries of the Unexplained, along with many others. And I am so looking forward to sharing Karen's work and wisdom with you today. So let's get into it. She is joining us via Zoom all the way from upstate New York in the USA. Hey, Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. You have to say upstate because when you say New York, people think I'm in the city where the fun things are happening. But I'm way up in Siberia. I'm taking care of parents with dementia. So,
okay. So not as fun as where like Gossip Girl comes from. Got it.
No, that would be so much better. If they could only be crazy there and not here, it would have been so much easier.
How far is it? Like, how far are you from New York, New York?
I am probably 5 hours from New York, New York.
Okay.
And
that's far.
Yeah, closer to Canada, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah. I used to live in Canada, but like opposite side over in Alberta. So.
Oh, yes. And you're in Australia. For some reason, I thought you were in England. Yeah, I'm trying to get to Australia. Yes, I'm trying to get in the Melbourne Comedy Festival. And then, yes, I have a friend there and he's trying to get me other gigs. So hopefully I get to meet you in person.
Oh, that would be so cool. Yes. The comedy festival in Melbourne it pops off. It is very, very good. Pre-kid days, we used to enjoy that. Now we're up in Queensland. I don't even know if they have a comedy festival up here. I've only been up here for a couple of years. And again, kids, little kids. So I don't leave the house.
Thank God for Zoom, right?
Yeah, thank goodness. But if you do, let me know and I will figure something out. Because I go down to Melbourne quite frequently. A lot of our family, friends, that's where we're from. So that would be so cool.
Yes, and free babysitting if you have family there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Great.
I do that a lot, actually. My husband's in the Defence Force, so he goes away a lot. And there was a point earlier this year where he was away for like a whole month and that went over school holidays. And I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. So we're going to go to Melbourne, me and the kids, and I'm going to, stay with the in-laws and my dad, and we're going to utilize the grandparents.
Oh, that's great. I have to ask though, isn't that kind of nice having a husband that's not home all the time?
Oh, look, I love my husband dearly. I do. Sometimes it's nice because I'm like, sweet, I get the whole bed. right? And no snoring. But then usually one of the kids ends up in there. So I don't actually get the whole bed. So yeah.
Yeah, see, I have a thing of marriage. I don't ever want to get married. So I feel like I'm always looking for the out. And you're like, no, I like my husband. That's how marriage should be, Karen.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, come back, come home. He's getting home tonight. He's been sunning it up in Tahiti.
Oh, nice.
For work. Like, oh my goodness. All right. So I wanted to ask, first question, how did you get into comedy?
So stand-up comedy, I always say comedians are born. They are not exactly made. But when I was a little kid, I would memorize like Steve Martin's albums, and I just would memorize comedy all the time. When I was a kid, I was in the church comedy show, and it really is. I mean, comedy. You have a show out there called Fisk. She's my favorite. And somebody said to her online, they said, "Oh, I see you're still using comedy to affect your real feelings." And that's kind of true. But I just always was so interested. And then I went to college and I wasn't a student at all. And I remember seeing this woman on TV, and her name was Karen Haber. And I was like, I think I can do what she's doing. Like years later, I met her and we hung out. So it's always kind of cool. But small town, you don't think, oh, I can just be a comedian. So I finished college early because I hated it so much. Terrible student, hated it, squeezed it all in, jumped on a plane, went to Las Vegas, became a cigarette girl, and met a bellman who did
What?
comedy.
Just to stop you there, what is a cigarette girl?
I don't know if you ever seen them in the old movies, but they walk around. They used to walk around with a box of cigars, cigarillos,
Oh,
and you were in a little short skirt, and I made lots of money. But
cute.
it was yes, it was like it's kind of a glorified waitress, but with cigarettes.
Okay.
And yes, it was fascinating to go from being a small town girl to like in a little skirt and high heels running through a
Mm.
casino and all these men. But the bellman said, "I do comedy, come to an open mic." So he took me to an open mic. The first joke, which was just an old joke, just destroyed. And then everything else I had written had just died. But I was like, I got that first laugh. This is what I'm doing. No questions asked. And then I just kept going.
I love that. I love that. And what was it that got you into tarot? Like, how did you find the tarot? Because these don't usually go hand in hand.
Well, you know what? You actually would be surprised. But I had a lot of psychic experience as a kid, and even now I believe everything. I believe UFOs. I believe
Yep.
big. You really have to. There's like one thing I don't believe in, and it's the Jersey Devil, and that story's crazy. But other than that, I'm kind of I think anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of psychic experiences. And then when I was in San Diego, which I was in my early 20s, I met a reader named Jacqueline Valdez, who to this day is still my friend. But she was so good. And she would teach me, she would say, this right here means this, and this right here means this. And I didn't really believe I was psychic, but I thought, she said, you should get a deck. And I thought, if I learn what every single little color, this, that. So I went from it from like a memorization point, and then my intellect started to kick in. But I will tell you, there is I have a couple other decks, but I use the writer deck. I have
Yeah.
some sort of connection to that because those are like my friend. Like even when I do off cards, I see in the writer deck.
I'm very similar. So I'm also a tarot reader, and I'll be depending. I'm using any other deck, right? Whatever deck I'm looking around, Mythos tarot deck, right? It's all Greek gods, and I'll pull a card and then go. So this card's this. Now in the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's shown as this. So. And I'm always referencing it like it's still there. Like, so in that card, it looks like that. So we're bringing that symbolism into this deck as well, just so everyone knows.
I know. Did you ever see a deck where someone does something different and just in your head you go, oh, they don't have that. They don't know Pamela Coleman Smith,
Yeah. Oh, where's that symbolism? Or they've like misconstrued it or added something in from a different card in the wrong card, and you're like, oh, what are we doing here?
My whole belief system just got blown up.
Yeah. So, all right, so you found the tarot, and then did it just naturally happen that you were like, oh, I'm already funny, and now I'm doing this, and they just mushed together? Like, what happened? How did they come together?
Well, so when I always I was always doing paranormal investigation. And this is the weird part. This is how I live my life. I almost live it backwards from everyone else because I had really just learned about them and I was like, let's do it on stage. And then I kind of became a professional where I was like, maybe I could do this for a living. So and now I look at the tapes and they were really good. But I think about how everyone's like, I'm so afraid to read for someone. And I was like, let's put it on stage so everyone can see me fail. But I did it a couple of times. There's a club in LA called Flappers. And it's funny because it was, I tell you, I used to do it in this little room, 12 to 50 people. And even sometimes we couldn't, and it was like, this is the best show. We couldn't draw a crowd. But I just did it for, I think I'm going on 30 years now. And last year it must have just hit its time because it exploded.
Mhm.
And it gave me a lot of time. A lot of times I learn as I go. Like I had to start making rules. Like rule is we don't talk to dead people because in a comedy club we're laughing, 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 and someone's like, "So my daughter's dead," and I was like, "Yeah, we're not talking about dead people." So
Yeah.
as the show evolves, I keep learning like how to put it. But
Mm.
it just now I'm doing small theaters and all over. And but take that from me, kids. Just keep persisting if you think it's right.
Yeah, I love that. And so the response, I guess, was good at first. It just didn't catch on. Is that what happened?
Didn't catch on. It
Mm.
was a weird thing, and I used to do it at one point with an animal communicator. And I was in California, and we were doing a show in Pennsylvania. It was all set up. I'm on the plane, and I get a notice from them that the venue that had been rented for us was connected to a church, and a
Mm.
newspaper thing went out, and the church people said, "We are not, if you allow tarot cards in there, we'll never come back to church." And we had to move it that night.
Oh gosh. Oh, I can, yes, absolutely relate. And especially, I mean, especially in the States, there's a very big Christian community. I'm sure that there was some form of notice that probably went around.
Yeah, somebody got me. Yeah, and I, what's funny? I do it in Utah with all the Mormons, and
Mm.
they believe in mystics, so they love it. They don't find it bad at all.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just got to pick your cult right.
that's right. And I did it in a synagogue, and no one had any questions because I think they were afraid. And I was
Yeah.
like, I go to the rabbi. I was like, dude, what do you guys think of ghosts? And he goes, I go, you don't believe in them, do you? And he goes, no, we believe him. You're not supposed to talk to him. And I was like, that's my whole life. But they had a great sense of humor.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So have you ever had like a negative response in the actual crowd, or does everyone know what they're signing up for when they get there?
I just do it now. So there are shows that are listed as psychic stand up, and then there's just shows where I show up with it. And
Mm.
so far, because I just decided at one point when it started to go, I was like, this is what I do, not doing anything else. Even if you guys don't have any questions, which every once in a while they don't, so I'll tell a story. But when it's for psychic stand up, it could go on for hours because they're
Mm.
you know but I can't remember anybody getting mad or walking out. I think we're in a good zone now as for people not being freaked out by this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice way for people that are like, I was always afraid to get a reading because I was think there's going to be bad news. It's a good break-in for them.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I think comedy softens it, and it probably gives some people who want that like mental out, a little bit of a mental out. Like, oh no, it's just a performance. Like they can add that into their worldview if they need to.
Yes, yes. But and I'm sure you know this, or you talk about this too, everyone is getting quite psychic.
Yeah.
So there's a real curiosity. So they really want to ask, and they know. And now I don't have one right here, but I made a little yes or no deck that people could
Mm.
buy, that each card has a joke on it, like yes, and may it always be Christmas in your pants, or
Yeah.
go smoke some meth and then ask again, or and they're they're doing very well. So I think they're a fun thing, but people are like, hey, they really work.
What is it called? What is that deck called?
It's just the yes and no. I just had them printed. I had 50 of them printed and they sold so fast I had to get another 100. So it's just a yes or no. I haven't even named it yet, but I also
Oh, I love that. I love that.
yeah, I'm going to make one that's all swearing at you.
I adore that. If you need like an Australian stockist, you let me know. I'll put them in my shop. That is like so aligned with my sense of humor. I think that's hilarious. That's like it's like a blend of tarot and Cards Against Humanity, I guess.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes, which I've done a tarot. I'm doing tarot with air quotation marks because I've done a tarot reading using my Cards Against Humanity in a traditional tarot spread just because I was like, oh, this could be fun. And it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And like the hilarious that you're like, oh, this is funny, but also, oh, that's kind of on point.
That's hysterical. Oh my God. Would you mind if I use that in a show?
Yeah, look, it's not my original. It's not my original. I did steal that idea from my friend Rosie Quartz, who's also been on the podcast. I can't remember if we talked about it on the episode. We might have, but yeah, she was doing that with the tarot cards against humanity, and I was like, I have to get on this. So
yes. All right, I may do it, and I'll send a free yes or no deck to you, Amber.
Woo! Yay! So what happens? Like, obviously, you're up on stage. People ask a question, so it's very like crowd inclusive. So I guess I've been to a few comedians, and there's like where you heckle the crowd, but you're less heckling and more, or you're still kind of heckling. Is it? Would you look at it that way?
Well, it's so I do before I do the tarot, I do about a half an hour of stand up. So they're already on, with me, they're already on, and even the tarot, they're like, what is she doing now? So I make sure they volunteer a question, although I think I'm changing that in the act. And then usually what kind of happens is like you are probably like me, like the cards are so familiar. I can do that sort of on the shelf, fast without digging in tarot reading. And so yes, I will make fun of them a little bit. Usually I try not to make fun of the person too much.
Yeah.
But you've seen the videos, it kind of is a little snappy. But I will it's real interesting. It's so exciting to me because I feel like I'm using two sides of my brain, like the comedy side and the tarot side. And the biggest thing, especially now, is to make that leap. Just take the chance. Just keep talking. Just keep talking. And so far, it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I love that. And what about when you get things that are maybe more, because with the tarot, there sometimes can be very, not negative, I don't want to say the word negative, but maybe very real and raw, or could come across a bit more of a downer, right?
Yes.
What do you do with that? Like, you don't want the whole show to just be like, oh, yeah. Like, how do you work with that?
Sometimes that does happen. And I will, I'll kind of say, well, this is the timeline you're on. And you never want to punch down. You know what I mean? You never want to be like, well, you're losing, you're not going to have a job. But I will talk about changes every once in a while. I'll say, see me after the show, because I know that I want to dig in a little bit. But usually I'll kind of go, well, this is the timeline you're on now. So you want to do this and this and look out. But I'm also pretty good. I never lie. Okay. So I would rather push somebody to the end than be like, you're a tarot devil, nine of swords kind of thing. But I think even when I read tarot, you know how you can kind of see like the Tower card, it's going to be okay after. Like I promise you it's going to, or the Nine of Swords, like, or the Ten of Swords, like you hit rock bottom, congratulations, it's about to shift. So I'm pretty good at doing that, about kind of frosting bad news. But even with that, I feel like the last time I talked to someone and she was like, I told them this was off of the show, I told them, I don't remember what I told them, because sometimes when you know how you do a reading, you're kind of so in.
My brain does not record them. It just pops out of my mouth. So yeah, I get that.
And so it was something that was pretty negative. And she said, and when it happened, I remembered I heard your voice and I handled it so much better. So I might
Mm-hmm.
break off and tell a story like that, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but yeah, I feel like when I went to my teacher when I wanted to do this, and I was like, do you think I'm disrespecting the cards by bringing them into a comedy show? And she said, well, the fact that you asked that means no, you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
fine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I will say one time this corporate hired me to do this. And in comedy, you know, intimacy, a certain amount of intimacy is good. So I get there. This show is in a stadium for like 50 people, and they're all cluttered, and I'm up there like I'm announcing a baseball game, right? So the show, I don't even know how the show is going because I can't even hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked me to do the layout for their boss, who I did a little research on the boss. The boss was like deacon in his Catholic church. Like it was all like, and then and it was so uncomfortable, and I did his astrological sign, but the cards, they were like, he was like, okay, how's business going to be next year? He's so uncomfortable on stage with me, and I was like, hey, is summer usually slow for you? And he goes, no, that's supposed to be our busy season. And I was like, oh, well, it's been nice. Have a good, yeah, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, good night. When I left, I was like a little afraid they weren't going to pay me, but it all worked out. So
Oh goodness. Yeah, I've done that before where you're like, oh, you know, this is usually how it is. They're like, no, it's usually opposite. You're like, oh, that's
well,
great to know. Maybe prepare for that and put some things in place.
right? Yes. Well, in 2 years, you guys are going to be doing great. Don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about next year.
And I love that take you said earlier on the Ten of Swords. Like, congratulations, you've alrety hit rock bottom. It's only up from here. That is wonderful because it can be such a like, especially if you're using the Rider-Waite Smith card, it can be such a intense card to look at.
Yeah.
So having a way to soften that blow, and especially, I did a YouTube video on how to deliver bad news ethically recently. So like how to give a bad reading, essentially, you know, bad being it's negative and a bit of a downer. And it was, you know, sort of talking about those sorts of cards and how you have to really go by what the client is, you know, if they're already vulnerable and you can feel that, you could be really careful
Yeah.
because we don't want to spiral anyone. But that could be a really sort of lighthearted way to lift it up. So I think that's really interesting. Do you show
Yeah.
people the cards when you're reading them, or do they not really see them because they're on the table?
Right now, I do everything over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
After COVID, I just started doing over the phone, and my clients are kind of, because of comedy, my clients are everywhere. But I found the phone to be clearer for me because nobody's making faces. There isn't a distraction. It's just me and the cards. And I think I feel like my readings got better with that. But in the show, I am trying to get a way to project them on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's kind of a technical nightmare, but I'm trying to figure it out and find a way to do that. The one time I did it, it was quite interesting because a woman asked me about love, and she had like the 5 of Pentacles and then the 7 of Cups, and I was like, so I said, look at you. And then the crowd just starts laughing because they don't even have to know tarot to know everybody in those, you know, this doesn't look good. And so what I will always do is then I'll go, so I take it you're pretty discouraged about love. And she was like, yes. And I was like, let's see what we can do if you change that, if you start getting out and changing your own, you know, thing, and then the cards get better. But I do believe that, you know, that is the truth, that we can make the best of, or there's a mirror, like, you know, we all know when we're blocking ourselves, I think. So I try to take that approach. So if it's really bad news, I'll go into, okay, what can you do?
Yeah.
What is your lesson?
I love that. I'm exactly the same. So like a fate-based versus a choice-based model of reading. So fate is like, well, this is what's happening. You can't do anything about it. Which, you know, some areas of the world have divination, like in Indian cultures, Hindu cultures, when they're doing Vedic astrology, it's very fate-based. It's like, this is your life. In, you know, a few other areas around the world, there's different ways of doing cards. There's a type, I can't remember what it's called, in Singapore, where and sometimes in India as well, where the parrot selects your card for you. Anyway, it's technically illegal now, but I have had that reading done a couple of times when I've been over there. Before it was made illegal, I didn't know. And that one, again, is very fate-based. It's like, this is your life. Whereas the choice-based, I think, is more of a Western concept of, this is what's coming, but if you don't like that, let's see what you can do about it. Let's pull a card to see how we can shift that energy and make it what you want. So I think it's a bit more empowering.
Yeah, or react to it, or
yes. What will help you through it? What not to do, what to do.
Yeah, this last summer I worked in Dubai, and it was just a comedy show. It wasn't, and the lady was like, "You should do tarot. You should do tarot." So then that night I was sitting with the other comics, and I remembered someone saying that tarot cards are illegal in Iran. And I thought, I wonder if they're illegal here. And I went upstairs to get my cards, and I came off the elevator, and they were like, "Nope, not. We're in a restaurant. Nope, nope, nope. They're illegal." So I don't know if they would have been fine, or if, but you know, I don't need to be in jail in Dubai.
Yes.
For tarot.
Yeah, definitely. There was at one point where we were there was a possibility of my husband saying like, "Oh, look, I might go for this job in Saudi Arabia." And I was like, no, because then I will just get arrested on the spot. Like, you can't do that to me.
Exactly.
Like, I am a very public witch. It's no. So yes, there's definitely some places where tarot is still very, very frowned upon and illegal and all of that, which makes it tricky. Absolutely.
Yes. One state down from me, Pennsylvania, there is a woman, and she's living out the whole thing where she was arrested because she wasn't supposed to. She does a witch's shop, and she was doing tarot reads, and they arrested her, and she's fighting it in the courts. But man,
I think I might have seen this online, and they got her on that like really old law about fortune telling or something like that.
Yep. And I don't know if this is there. First of all, I have to say, I love talking to someone where I can go like 5 of Pentacles, and they don't have to think. They're just like, I know.
Yeah.
I dream this. I lost my train of thought.
Pennsylvania lady.
Pennsylvania lady. I'm glad you had it.
The law.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. Yes, talking to people that know the tarot makes it very, very easy. A lot of my listeners are very familiar with the tarot. I do a lot of tarot content because I love the tarot. It's so fun.
Yes, I'm trying to do more where it's funny with the cards. Like, I know I always think of the Knight of Swords as Charlie Sheen, because Charlie Sheen will get from A to B no matter what happens. He wanted a foul ball off of a game of whoever's baseball team was. So he bought out the whole stadium and sat there alone to see if someone would hit a foul ball. And he didn't get one, but I was like, that's
that energy.
Yes.
Yes. So I love that you've brought that up, because when I'm teaching the tarot, so I have a class on like how to read the tarot. And when I'm teaching it, I always say the court cards people find so tricky. They're always like, oh, I don't know what this means, because we don't have pages and knights anymore, right? Yeah. Kings and queens very rarely, depending where you live. So it's a bit of a foreign concept to how this relates to us. So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to give these people a character. They're not always going to be just a person in your life, but we can have a character that we relate it to. And I've got a tarot deck that I'm creating, but it's not like in getting published or anything yet. It's still in creation mode. And it's the story, well, I haven't got a name, but at the moment the working name is Storyteller's Tarot, and it's for writers. And so it uses like archetypes, story archetypes, plot archetypes. For example, the Hanged Man would be the cliffhanger, because in stories, similar sort of vibe, tension, you're in suspense, waiting, what's the next chapter going to be? So that's the concept. But the court cards are all characters, like not characters, tropes. So for example, I've got the Page of Swords as the gifted child, and then the characters would be like Matilda, right? Or Hermione Granger, like the gifted child, the child that is like brilliant beyond their years. So then when you get something like the Page of Swords in a reading, and it's maybe your advice card, and you're like, how the hell do I read that? You can go, well, what would Matilda do in this situation, right?
Yeah,
How would Matilda handle this?
that's excellent.
Yeah, so Charlie Sheen, I might add him to the list of examples for my Knight of, you said Knight of Swords, didn't you?
Yes, yes, because
Yeah.
he's rich, and he was young, handsome, and rich, and it was just like, I'm doing what I want, which is kind of weird. But yes, and also please come on my podcast. If you want to wait till the deck is done, let me know. If not, just come on my podcast. I'd love to talk more tarot.
Yay. Yeah, I'm always down, and always down for swaps as well. So that would be one. Tell us about your podcast. What's it called?
So my podcast is called Paranormal Karen, and it's right now it's a lot of healers. So I'm trying to bring the darkness back. I'm calling
Yep.
my demonologists and my and my scary people.
Well, speaking of demonologists, I have like a book on demonology, like right next to me.
Oh, really?
Yes, and the dictionary of demons over there. So I can go dark if we want to go dark.
I will do that. Yes, I love it because I kind of feel like I love healers and stuff like that, but I'm not love and light. I always say there's those that are like really just they are love and light, and then there's people that are dark, and then there's those of us that straddle that kind
Mhm.
of keep them separate, like keep
Yeah.
people, and yeah, I love the dark stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. There's no
So,
light without dark.
well, you said you started off with paranormal investigations. Did they ever feature in your stand-up?
Did the like stories about the paranormal
Yeah.
investigations?
Yeah.
I have a huge chunk of paranormal material,
Mhm.
and I worked at a lot of paranormal conferences. So the key is making that stuff palatable for regular folks. Like
Mhm.
I say, don't be afraid of ghosts. People used to turn TVs on and off all the time, but now they just stand around, now the ghosts just stand around looking at the three remotes going, I don't know which one it is, so I do a lot of that. I'm actually working on a chunk for psychics, like
Mm.
kind of psychic comedy only, but everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Like about that guy that goes, hey, if you're psychic, can you give me the lottery numbers? And I'm like, yeah, I'm driving around in a 2009 Nissan Versa holding the lottery numbers for you,
Yeah.
right? How about some other numbers? How about the number 3? That's the number of times you're going to have sex before you die. How about that? How about the number 1? That's the number of times someone else will be there. So I do have that. But actually, I was going to put this out in a special, and now I think I'm just going to put it on YouTube and break it up. But
Mhm.
it is a true story of how, like, I always say I'm not a witch. Like I'm like peripheral witch. Like
Yeah.
you
Which
guys are
adjacent.
so yes, which adjacent. You guys are organized and you know your dates and times and stuff, and I don't. So I had all these people over my house, and we did a fairy spell,
Mhm.
and something went wrong, and something got attached to me. And it's like this long story about how my friend who was the animal communicator called me and was like, your dog is telling me that you have a fairy attached to you. And so I called my demonologist, and he's like, wait, what did the dog say? And it goes on and on. And it's probably a 15 to 20-minute story that I believe I finally have it pretty palatable for the regular folks. Like,
Mhm.
how do you do a fairy spell? Well, you need you need a candle, you need chocolate, and you need mushrooms. And well, the mushrooms are optional, but you have to use them in that order, because if you do them the other way, you might summon the fire department instead of a fairy. So
Mhm. Mhm. I
so
love
make it.
that. And I love it that it's kind of like I called my animal communicator and then had to call my demonologist. And he wanted to know what the dog said. Like, that's so funny.
Yeah, it was such a weird, chaotic story that I was like,
You're like, this is
this,
material.
yes, yes.
What's the funniest thing do you think? Well, funny. Do you have like a funny story you can share from a show, like where the cards were just like you were laughing as well? When you're trying to tell a joke and you're like, I actually can't. This is so funny.
Yes. So most of it, because I'm on stage, because I'm in comedy mode, I don't laugh. So I just did this huge theater. I think it was like 1,000-seat theater. And someone goes, they hand the microphone, and I hear a woman's voice, and she goes, when or will I find love by the end of the year? And I was like, somebody's in a hurry. What is this? And I pull the cards and I'm like, wow, she literally has the two of, or no, the six of cups, the 2 kids with the cups, which to me is always like real sexy love. And then she's got the lover's card right on either side of her. And I was just doing a 3-card layout. And I was like, wow, somebody is already interested in you. So this is what you got to do. You got to start dressing like a whore. Okay. And make sure this person knows you're easy. And I go, do you know the person I'm talking about? And then they hand her the mic back and she goes, I'm 11.
Why did I take a sip of water just then? Oh my God.
And now everybody's dying. Thank God everybody's laughing because that could have gone the other way. So I go, all right. I go, you're already 11. This is what you got to do. You got to dress like a whore. But that was the last one where I was like, okay, who brought an 11-year-old to my dick show?
So funny. Oh gosh, that's so funny. Oh yeah, like, are there usually kids there?
No. Well, it's a comedy show. When I moved it into a theater, but I might have some kid fans. I'm not sure. But when you move into a theater, it's a little different. A comedy club, they really have that age thing. I don't think you'd have a kids in a comedy club. But when you kind of move into theater restaurant level, could be any. But
yeah, I've been to a comedy show. But to be very fair, it was a terrible comedy show. There are some that are just really not great. But we got free tickets, so we went, and that kind of made it fun. And it was so terrible, it was funny. It became a story. But when we were there, I remember there was someone had brought a baby, and the comedian tried to like make that as part of their skit. And this little baby's just sleeping away, and it just kind of fell flat. It's like, poor woman with their babies just trying to have a night out. But yeah, I've never seen kids there, like a newborn, but maybe not kids. But
that was even a surprise to me that there was a little kid there. But you just keep going. You do it with confidence, and you go, that's your fault. You brought a kid.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, hopefully she found her love.
Yes. I just did a show where it was 2 hours from where I live now. And the good thing about Utica, there wasn't a lot, but I sort of, because I was in LA and everything was moving, but out here there's like places where I can really just fool around. And I had been there. He goes, I was here last year, and last year I asked you if I should get a cat, and you said wait. And I said, oh, I remember you were here with the lady, right? Where is she now? And he goes, she's gone. And I go, did she take the cats? And he goes, that was a huge problem. And I was like, I just go, that's why I love the cards. You were supposed to wait because she was going to take your cat.
Yes, I love that. So I get that a lot, especially from my mum. She'll call me up and go, Hannah, do you remember when you pulled this card and you said this, 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 and this? And I'm like, I don't remember that at all. And she'll be like, well, I took notes, because she takes notes. And she's like, and that happened. And then I did the thing you said and it all worked out. Or I didn't do the thing and it didn't work out. And I'm like, oh, she's such a good client. Thanks, Mom.
I also love when people tell you when you get something. I can't remember. I was talking to a woman the other night and I was like, so when your husband passed? And she goes, wait, how'd you know my husband passed? And I thought she had said it, but she hadn't said it. But I just look at them and I go, that's how this works. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. So you've got so many good, like, witty little, like, just ways to bring it together. That's wonderful. I love that. It is such a skill. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What is, do you know your big 3 in astrology by any chance?
Like sun sign, moon sign, and I'm terrible with astrology, by the way. All I know, I'm good with numerology. So I am a Leo sun. Who worship me. I'm Leo.
Up on the stage, very on theme.
Yes. And what's funny? I'm trying to write jokes about each sign. I just got a couple, but so I'm a Leo sun, Aries moon, and Gemini rising.
Okay, so Gemini absolutely would track with anything comedian based. I'd be interested to see where your Jupiter was and if there's any like Pisces, Sagittarius as well, because Pisces has this like real goofball energy that can come with it that I think people overlook a lot. They're like, oh, it's the fluffy, spiritual, flowy one. But there is this goofball element that people overlook. And Sagittarius rules over comedians as well. So does the ninth house. So very interesting. But yeah, Gemini rising, that's very good with words, very witty. 100%.
I find it interesting. So I'm a Leo sun, Gemini rising. And Donald Trump is Gemini rising, Gemini sun, and Leo rising. So he's literally my flip.
It is really interesting when we look at people who have either the same or different, the different makeup of our own big three. It can be really eye-opening. I find it really tricky when if I do someone's chart. I have an evil auntie. I've done my evil auntie's chart, and unfortunately we share the same big three in a different way. So like my rising is her moon, etc. But the same big three. And I was like, no, I don't want to be like that.
The last person that did my chart was like, because I'm always ending up in haunted houses or haunted apartments or whatever, and someone did my chart and they were like, no, you are the paranormal. I don't know what it was that the combination, but she was like, you're never not going to be in a haunted house. You're never not going to be in anything like that. So the most interesting aspect of my astrological chart is that I've looked into. I'll look. There could be more. I don't. I have a very short attention span. My Lilith is in the 8th house, and I did all this looking on this. And the top part, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they said when your Lilith is in the 8th house, you're either a gold digger or people think you're a gold digger, which is weird because I am in everyone's will. I am telling you, everyone leaves me money. I don't know if I look pathetic.
Do you know what the 8th house rules?
It's sex and money, right?
Well, it's not just money, it's other people's money.
Yes.
And it rules over inheritances. So that is very, very on theme.
Yes. So I have this one client, he's very, very old, and he doesn't have any kids or any family, and he put me in his will. Well, he had nephews that were waiting for him to die and have his money, and they somehow got a hold of his will, and they were like, who is this fake? You're giving your money to a tarot reader. And I had to laugh because I was like, Lilith in the 8th, baby.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a few like astrological techniques where I can look at someone's chart and be like, you will get an inheritance. Like, it's very cool. So things for my astrologer people, astro nerds out there, if the ruler of the 8th house, so whatever sign rules the 8th house, so let's say it is Scorpio is on your 8th house, then you would look for the ruler of Scorpio, which would be Pluto, if you're using modern astrology, and you'd look for where that lives. And if it lives in the 2nd house, then you're like, oh, you're going to get an inheritance at some point when that is, indicated when that comes into being. So it's very cool, the stuff that is in our charts and that can be seen like that. And I love that as such a perfect example.
I used to have this little comedy series called Paranormal Karen that I think I'm going to bring back, but each month I made fun of the astrological sign. But this was what was interesting to me. Again, I could be off on this, but Taurus is kind of the sex sign, right? And the good lover. Sensual. And then Scorpio is the many time lover, the Viagra lover.
Yes.
So I looked up Taurus with Scorpio rising, and it was like Einstein, and I can't remember who the other one was. It was all these like brilliant men. And then I looked up Scorpio with Taurus rising, and it was like Charles Manson, and it was like the dark side of, right? Like, it was really interesting.
That's interesting. So it's very good to look at astrology through the lens of popular figures. that's a
Mm.
really good way to like learn how things come out in the world as well. So that's really interesting. So did you have any like jokes that you'd prepared around the astrology signs?
The only one I have so far is my sister is a Libra, which means she likes to weigh both sides for a very long time before she doesn't decide anything.
Yes.
And Taurus men are this is true. Taurus men, uh Hitler, he was right on that edge,
Yep.
Aries
Yes,
Taurus,
he was.
Stalin, Saddam Hussein, all these bad people that wanted to take over the earth, Barbara Streisand, just
Mhm.
awful people.
You're a Reiki master as well. Does that ever come into your stand-up gig?
Um, the well, it kind of does in a way. um, I tell a joke, I don't. Do you? This is so stupid. You guys don't have guns in Australia, do you?
I mean, there are guns, but they're very, very difficult to get. Pretty much no one has them. My dad has one, but he's a farmer. So that's like,
Oh, okay.
you can get
Because
it if you're a farmer, but that's about it. And they're not like
uh,
handguns. They're like, I don't
rifles.
know, maybe I haven't even seen
Oh,
it. But every now and then I'll call him because I used to be an animal rescuer when we were living in Victoria. And if I ever had an animal that needed to be put down, I'd call my dad and be like, yo, can you help me out? I don't want to do this. So
yeah, I know that
he'd
seemed
come
like a
up.
weird segue, but I have a joke where I took a woman's gun course because I wanted to see what it was like.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I learned that if you own a gun, you're most likely to kill a family member, but
Mm.
there's bad things too. It's not all good. And, but I said I did take a woman's gun course, and the other women run in and they're like, I have bandages. The other one was like, I have tourniquets, and I was like, I have Reiki. I don't know what we're expecting to happen, but I'll raise the frequency of the wounded. And but yeah, that's about maybe talking about it or stuff like that. But I will be honest, I used to do Reiki in my house and it kind of bored me, but I
Mm.
had some wild things happen. So like
Mm.
really, I remember I was working on this one lady, and she was a young girl, and her hair was all dyed blonde, and I put my hands over her head and something came out like at me, like a mask of a horrible mask came at me, and I was like, okay, what's that? And I was like, it's okay, everything will be okay. And I finished and I said to her, where are you from? And I said, because there was something in here that reminded me of Santeria, and which, Santeria is that
Yep.
religion. And she goes, oh, my grandfather was the high priest in a Santorian church. And I was like, oh, I think he's here because he did. And then I ended up talking to someone else that said, yes, she didn't know in the Santorian church, you're not supposed to be going at her head. That is a sacred area and you're not supposed to be, messing there. So he showed up. That guy
Yeah,
showed
to
up.
sort of scare you off a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And that's
guess
such
he
a
trusted me because nothing else happened.
that's such a good way to approach it as well. Just like, oh, that's interesting. Like
Yes.
the curiosity, I think, takes away a lot of fear when people are doing anything paranormal or a little bit out there. Just like the, wonder why that's happening. Let's find
Yes.
out. It's such a good method to approach it.
It is, and it's because I've been in some tight spots. Like, I mean, they're always funny after. In
Yeah.
fact, my demonologist friend he's an editor, and he's always like, "Oh my God, what did you do? What did you do?" And my friend told me she was having some trouble in her house, and we have like a form, like you fill out a whole form,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to tell us what's going on. And he's brilliant, like he can get what's going on
Mm.
from the form. And usually if someone's psychologically unbalanced, they'll get perturbed with the form, or it kind of filters out what's not real,
Mm.
and or what's going on here instead of out there. And my friend had called me and she was like, I think there's something in here, and she was kind of like weird about it. And so I was like, I'll just stop by after a show. So then I'm at her front door and I start to already feel like this is not right. And she goes, oh, I forgot to tell you this, which is always, that means that's the thing they should have told you first. And she goes, So I think it's after my roommate. And one day I left and came back and there was a rope and we don't know where it came from. And it was tied all the way around her neck and she couldn't get out and it was lifting like that and there was nothing there. And I was like, that's the first story you tell before I get here. That's not a, hey, by the way, I forgot the story.
How did you forget that?
I know. That's important.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I think it would be so much fun to be part of a paranormal investigative team. When the kids grow up, I will absolutely join one. So you've got on the team, there's you, the demonologist, and the animal communicator.
Well, they're all kind of separate people, but
Okay.
I don't do that much investigating now, or if I do, I will go with a group like as a guest.
Mhm.
But at that time, also, in Australia, I did a paranormal convention there, and my friend Alex has a Paracon, and he's talking about March or April. So
Ooh.
you should go anyways. I mean, you'd have a blast.
Yes.
Yeah, they have speakers and they have they do an investigation and all that stuff. So tell Granny you're
Ooh.
coming. And
Yeah.
I'll get you any information on that I can. He's just
Cool.
floating around right now to do another one, but I think we did it before the pandemic.
Mhm.
But it's wonderful. But I usually float around. If there's anybody I investigate with like consistently, it's my friend Ryan Singer. Who has a podcast also, who's wonderful, and he's a comic too.
Mhm.
Um, but weird. You want a creepy story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I had a little dog. His name was Courage, and the reason I met my animal communicator friend was he got sick, and someone told me to call her, and she had a connection with him. Like I would be standing there, and we'd be talking on the phone, and she'd go, "Oh, Courage is mad," and I, and she goes, there used to be little square things in his bowl and now there are little triangles and he is not eating the triangles. And I had just changed his food and I turned around standing by the bowl like, I'm not eating these. So she could communicate with him when there was a spirit in the room or whatever was going on. So I was investigating this place with Ryan shot his comedy special there. I think it's called Middletown School. It was a elementary school and it was ridiculously haunted. Like you walked in and you were like, oh. And there
Yeah.
was a guy that lived there and he had videos of like this thing pulling him out of bed by his foot and like it was dangerous.
Mm.
So I'm there. And so at one point I brought Courage in, didn't even going through the lobby. So animal communicator's not there. She's on the phone. Courage is in my arms and Courage is telling them the whole building. And they're like, oh my God. And he's like, there's a cement wall that just ends. It's in the middle of something. I don't even know what that is. That's where this thing hangs out. And the guy was like, no, that's in the cellar. That's where all the activity is. How does he see this? So, anyways, it was amazing. Then I brought Courage back home because he was old, and we finished the investigation. Now he had this machine that was amazing. Like what they call a shack hack, which is where you see that on the TV shows where it goes and it's scanning radio stations. And
Oh, yeah.
the thinking behind that is the white noise, they can kind of ride that wave because they don't have vocal cords, but they can ride that wave. I once worked with a guy who didn't have vocal cords, so he always talked like this. And EVPs riding that. Everything he said on tape was like 10 other people talking at the same time. So this machine, I don't know how this guy did it. It's around now, but he made it go backwards so that when you hear a radio station, because it was very hard to go, was that the radio or was that as it's clicking by? So the radio words were backwards. So you'd hear it like that creepy, like a record going backwards. Then the EVPs, so then it was silent when there wasn't anything. You didn't have the white noise. The EVPs he put on reverb. So if you got one, it would go like this. Hello, hello, hello. So you kind of had 3 chances to catch it. Well, in this place that was so haunted, it was unbelievable. The questions and answers and stuff that we were getting. So the next day I'm on the airplane and I was listening to all of these things and I called the animal communicator and I go, hey, Do you want to hear one of these? Do you want me to just send you? It was the most amazing thing. So I found the shortest one because I was on a plane. You can't text her long. I texted it to her. I don't hear from her at all. I texted her back. I go, wasn't that amazing? What are you doing? And she goes, I can't move. I'm so scared. And I go, what? And the one out of 80 recordings that I sent her, the one I sent her, her name was Sonia. It went like this: Sonia, Sonia, Sonia. And she said it was no, it wasn't Sonia. I'm so sorry. It was the voice of her grandson. And he was saying, Gammy, 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 which is what he called it. Was in his voice. It went Gammy, 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 Sonia, Sonia, Sonia. Out of everything I could have sent her, that's what she got. Isn't that amazing?
And is her grandson living?
Yep. Wow. And she sent me an audio of him saying that, saying Gammy and Sonia. It was his voice. This thing mimicked his voice. And somehow, I think they can change them after. So as they were like, yeah. And that was just a little like, yeah, we knew you were here. It might be for the dog, but we knew you were here. So that was amazing. And the next time I went there, I said I'd never go back. And then I went back right away. And I walked in and somebody's got the machine on. And they go, hi, Karen. That's what we hear through the machine. Hi, Karen. Like, they know I'm there. And I was like, okay, if you really know it's me, say my last name. And then it goes, Rontowski. And I was like, okay.
I love that. That is so cool. Creepy, but cool. I'm so here for it. That's the best. That's the best. Oh, okay. Amazing. If I'm ever in, I don't know. Oh, if I'm ever in the States for whatever reason, if we ever move there or whatever,
go.
You have to tell me where to go.
We're having a little trouble now. I wouldn't say.
I'll wait at least 4 years.
Although, I know it's not the topic, but I think that's about to change. Something's wrong.
Look, the Pluto, from the day we're recording this, which is actually in November, 19th of November, 2024, Pluto actually goes into Aquarius tomorrow for the next 19 years. And that's going to be a huge shift for the world. There's usually a lot of big things that happen. But then also Uranus goes into Gemini next year, which has a lot to do with the birth chart of the USA. And every time that happens, there's like, the Civil War and World War II and a few other things. So, there's stuff that might be happening.
Waiting. I'm ready. I got my doomsday prepper vegan meals that'll be good.
Hey, beans are great. Beans are great. Beans will last for ages. So I don't like to like doomsday talk about astrology, but there's going to be big changes. That's definite. So just I'll stay clear for a little bit.
And I don't think it's doomsday. I think it's over. I think we need it. I'm all about this government all the way. It's all so bad. I think we're about to pass Ukraine on the most corrupt government list because it's just, it needs to go. And, it's, my friend always says, United States is, remember how young we are. Like all your countries are older. We're like the drunk kid in the bar swinging around a beer bottle. Hey, number one.
You're older than us.
Are we?
Yeah.
Wow. You guys are smarter than us though.
A little bit. A little bit. When did Captain Cook come? I should know that. 1788.
Oh, yeah. We were 1776, but we were here before then.
But then the modern nation came into existence 1901.
Okay.
But 1788 was, the early British colonial period.
I when I was there, all I know about Australia was that movie where the kids were they went out too far and then they met the old guy that killed him. Like, you guys have a lot of land.
Yeah, we do. Which one was that? Was that about like Ivan Milat?
Was it something Creek, Wolf Creek?
Wolf Creek, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
There's a lot of so there was Ivan Milat, who was a serial killer who picked up like backpackers. I'm pretty sure that was that wolf. Maybe I'm probably wrong,
it
but
was based on a true story. I'm sure they tweeted.
Wolf Creek, true story. Google, come through. What are you telling me, Google? Yeah, Ivan Milat. Yeah. That's exactly who it was about. That's why no one in Australia not backpacks. No one in Australia hitchhikes.
Oh,
because he was like a hitchhike killer. He would pick people up when they were hitchhiking, and murder them. And now I don't know if this is counted as a conspiracy, but there is a serial killer allegedly in the Byron Bay region at the moment who's doing something similar with backpackers in that area, and that's like one of the biggest tourist destinations in Australia.
Oh, wow. You guys, you know, America, we have the most amount of serial killers. What's wrong with us? We have a ton of serial killers. We're number one with serial killers.
Why can I imagine Donald Trump being like excited about we're number one?
I don't even know. Oh my God. We're gonna
you do have a very big population as well, but it could be percentage based.
Yeah, you know, that is one thing people forget is like, especially I saw a guy from the UK was like, what are you guys doing? How is it? You know, he was like all upset. And I was like, listen, dude, your country fits in Texas. We got 49 other states after that. So it is pretty big. So it's not gonna, I don't know what it's gonna be, but my friend that runs the Paracon, he's like, Karen, you can move here and I'll marry you, and then we'll both talk about our boyfriends.
Excellent. Do it. All right. So last question, which is where can people find you online? Where are you hanging out? Where can people connect?
So my TikTok is kind of my favorite, but be sure it's me, because it's got like, I think I'm in 100,000 followers, but there's an awful lot of those awful knockoffs. So make sure it's me. Instagram, pretty much everywhere you can just find me at Rontowski. Or you can go to my website, psychicstandup.com, and you can book a reading there if you want, and get on my email list. I think email list is the safest. I'm on Facebook. So I have a Patreon. I only have a couple of people from the UK, but I think it's late at night there. So but all that stuff, so I think you can watch. I have 2 dry bar specials out. Those are clean specials. One's old, one's new. But watch for do that. And most on my TikTok is kind of where I have everything going out. So
well, that's where I found you, and that's where I see all of your videos pop up. I love it. I was so excited. I was like showing my husband. I was like, look who I've got coming on the podcast. Isn't she great?
Yes. Well, I had a great time. So thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute blast. I'll make sure to pop links below as well for everyone to find you and get on your email list, and hopefully be notified of Australian shows coming up, as well as, I mean, I've got listeners all over the world. So
Wonderful.
Let anyone know where you're going.
Awesome. And we'll get you on my podcast. So.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you've had as much of a blast as I have, and make sure to check out Karen over on TikTok. You'll see just what type of content she puts out and how hilarious it is. I told you that was an absolute hoot. It was so much fun. So much fun to chat with Karen. I do have Karen's amazing yes or no deck. I have 2 available in my shop. I was going to have 3, but my mum has already snapped one up and I'm keeping one for myself. So there is 2 available for whoever gets to them first. And as promised, here is a final clip of Karen doing her thing up on stage. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll chat with you next week.
Yes, what can I do for you?
Well, I was supposed to have a date here tonight, but she canceled out because she was with her fiance.
So you were supposed to have a date, but she canceled to go with her fiance. Okay? I'm afraid to ask this, but what is your question? I think that all the answers were in the setup.
But she texted me when I was here wondering what I'm going to do later.
Oh, she texted you. She wants to know what you're going to do later.
So what do you think will happen in like an hour?
What do I think will happen in like an hour? All right, let me look at my card. Oh, the 3 of whores showed up right there.
Okay.
I'm looking. I got you. You know, this is very interesting. Nothing is going to happen later tonight. I see a man alone with a wand. And that's what you get for going with someone else's fiance, right there. Oh, wait, say that again?
I said they broke up like 3 or 4 times.
It sounds like you like really stable women. Okay. Do you want me to see if there's someone else for you? Like someone else that's married?
No, somebody that's not married.
That's what that would be a best case scenario right there. Okay, so
How many cards are in it there?
there's 78, and right now you have all the bad ones. Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, Andy, you're the problem.
Really?
Yes. There will be others. One of them looks like a therapist, and you should pay that one to help you. Okay, I'm sorry. That got weird, didn't it?